It's time for another edition of the Screen Team on today's Talk 930 KWOC. We have a very, very special show for you this evening. Coming up here in a few minutes, we'll be talking with Sabrina. I've got Sabrina on board to do a couple of Halloween flicks. We're going to be doing Army of Darkness, which we love, man. It's just such a great horror comedy for the Halloween season. And we'll also be doing a brand new flick, which I think will become a Halloween classic. It's called It Follows, and we'll review that a little bit later. But first off, I want to welcome in Matt and Jenna Whitworth to the Screen Team table. How are you guys doing this evening?
Doing great. Good. Happy early Halloween, everybody.
Yes. Exactly, man. I'm glad you guys are here because we're getting ready to review one of the greatest movies of all time, in my opinion. You guys can disagree. That's cool. It's called Back to the Future 2. And what I want to let people know about is we're actually recording this segment on the actual day that Marty McFly goes into the future, which is October 21st of 2015.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. How weird is it that now this movie we've always looked at as in the future,
I know.
It's now going to be viewed in the past. Right now it's the present, and it's going to be viewed in the past from here on out. It's kind of weird.
Tomorrow it's the past, man. That is just so wild.
Yeah, I don't want to live in a world of tomorrow now.
Before we get into the whole, what's happened, what did this movie predict and stuff like that, give me your initial thoughts on the movie itself. Are you guys fans of this flick?
Ladies first?
Yeah.
Go ahead. You first.
That kind of sounded mean. But, yeah, huge fan of the entire trilogy. It's one of my favorite franchises ever. My favorite one's actually the first. I think that's the best made movie out of them. But this one had a lot of fun of going into the future and seeing what advancements we can make. And I like how they talked about sequels like Jaws 19. Really more today it's more about reboots, but that wasn't too far off from the cash cows that they were going for in Hollywood. Holograms, other advancements that they kind of predicted, and some of them got right. Some of them they still were kind of stuck in the 80s with it being really bright and glossy. They didn't predict the grunge movement of the 90s.
No, they didn't.
Was, so.
They definitely didn't. But, those things kind of tend to repeat themselves generations after generation. So
everything's cyclical, yes.
Jenna, your thoughts? Do you agree with Matt on this? Do you like this?
I do. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I have to admit, I only saw 1 and 3, and so recently I just watched the second one, and I found it very entertaining. I like the time travel type shows and movies, so I really enjoyed watching this and seeing all the, we can't do that because it'll be a paradox, and we got to be careful of this because of whatever. So it was really entertaining.
This flick is my favorite out of the trilogy. I don't think it's the best out of the trilogy. I think I agree with Matt. I think the first one's the best, but this one has a special place in my heart, just like Return of the Jedi has a special place in my heart with the Star Wars trilogy. This movie came out, I'm way older than you guys, but this movie came out when I was, I think, 7 or 8 years old, so when he went into the future and all this cool stuff was happening, the flying cars and, they didn't have attendants at the restaurant. They had like robots or just so many cool different things and the holograms coming and eating Marty McFly and the self-lacing tennis shoes. And it was just a cool experience, especially seeing it on the big screen. It was my only complaint about the second one is that it's not in the future long enough.
But how big an impact do they make for that short moment that they're in the future?
Yes.
They predicted being able to do video conferences and calls and everything, having all your credit cards on like one device. And that's something that I think was more recent even. So there's a lot of things that they predicted that happened just this year, not including the Cubs making it to the playoffs this far and beating the Cardinals.
Well, I want to let people know that as of today, the Cubs are still in it and they could still win the World Series, but they're down 3-0, and I'm so happy about that.
I know, high five.
I am so happy about that, man. This is one thing I definitely don't want to see predicted. But hoverboards, I love the scene where Michael J. Fox is on the hoverboard and doing his thing. I don't know which company, but one of the companies has created a hoverboard.
Yeah, was it Mercedes or...
I'm not 100% sure. Obviously, it doesn't do all the cool things that the movie does.
And there's another one, Hendo, that did it, but they both were magnets. There was a podcast that I listened to, and they were talking about how it's a hoax, and they were so mad about it. They're like, the one thing as a generation we've wanted more than anything, more than cures to any known diseases, are hoverboards, and this is not a hoverboard. It's magnets.
Yeah. Yeah. Nike just announced today on the 21st that they have created a self-tying tennis shoe that they're going to auction off in 2016 to several different charities, and also including the Michael J. Fox charity for Parkinson's disease as well. Cool. So, and Matt, you hit on the video chat and stuff like that. Also, I don't know how popular these were, but there was a phone, and we have specialized glasses where they have phones.
Oh, yeah, Google glasses.
Yeah. Is that who did it? Google?
Yeah, Google.
Yes.
So, the movie got so much right. One of the cool things, we talked about Chicago Cubs and how the movie predicted that they won the World Series that year. But this film was written by Bob Gale, who's actually a St. Louisan.
Yeah. So we would assume is a Cardinals fan, I would hope.
Yeah, that's what I would assume as well. But he says the reason why he picked the Cubs was because he wanted to pick somebody that was, so outrageous that you wouldn't think would win the World Series until, 30 or 40 years into the future. So,
Well, there you go then.
I hope it's longer.
Same here.
I hope it's longer. Okay, so Back to the Future 2. Do you recommend it to folks? Should people
Absolutely.
Start with the first one, watch all three.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is the most popular one, at least for audiences. I think the critics' darling was the first one because it was the innovator, and that's typically how it is, with the exception of maybe Terminator 2, Godfather 2, and a few others. Secret of the Use, of course. All the other great sequels. But this one has a really special place, and it's one of those franchises that really connects generations, I think, from the last 30 years, because it was released in the 80s, but kids in the 90s like myself and Jenna grew up on this franchise, and now here it is. We're in 2015, a year that they highlighted in the movie franchise and in this particular one, and we're still talking about it, and it's still special, and it has almost its own mock holiday today. It's Back to the Future Day.
That's right. Yeah, man, it's a holiday. Happy Back to the Future Day, guys.
Happy Back to the Future Day.
I love it, guys. Thank you so much for coming in and doing this with us. And you guys will be back next week for a special Halloween show, right?
That is correct.
Oh, man, we got, what do we have? Psycho?
Yes, The Shining and Beetlejuice, Beetlegeist.
Yes.
Guys. Should be fun. Guys, thank you so much for coming in.
Thanks for
Sabrina will be back in just a few minutes, and we'll review Army of Darkness. That's next on today's Talk 930 KWOC.